It feels like we're always looking, always searching for answers to these huge challenges we face, things affecting the whole world, our countries, even just, our families. We look everywhere, politics, tech, new theories. But what if, maybe, the best answers are actually, well, really old and maybe simpler than we think? So for this deep dive, we're digging into that lecture you shared by Manly P. Hall. He takes us way back, like 2,500 years. He pulls in wisdom from people like Confucius, the Chinese philosopher, and also Amos Comenius, that 17th century educator. Our goal here is to kind of unpack what they, through Hall, saw as the real foundations of a stable society, why we might be struggling now, and maybe where the real solutions actually lie.
Exactly. It's kind of strange, isn't it? With all our knowledge, all our tech, societies still wrestle with these really similar core issues century after century. And what's so interesting about Hall's argument and why it feels so relevant is he basically says the answers aren't in like big data or some future invention. They're surprisingly simple, really profound, and they start very, very close to home.
Okay, let's get into that. Hall kicks off with this incredibly powerful quote from Confucius.
Yeah.
As go the homes, so goes the nation. Simple as that. And Hall really hammers this point home, no exceptions. He says if the home life fails, the whole political system, well, it's inevitable that it fails too. That's quite a claim. What's the core idea there for us today?
Well, what's striking is Hall's point that, thousands of years haven't changed this basic truth. It's still active and important. He argues that a lot of the problems we see, the societal breakdown, it comes from ignoring these basic laws of nature, as he calls them. And it's not just about immediate problems. He suggests there's this kind of long-term debt that builds up generation after generation when home structures weaken. It has lasting detrimental effects.
Right, the foundation. And that focus on the home leads right into education, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Hall brings up Amos Comenius, the 17th century guy, credited with the first idea for a public school system in Europe, I think.
That's him. And Comenius asked this, really radical question for his time. Where does education begin? His answer, which Hall highlights, was amazing. It starts the moment a child is born. And Hall adds, based on his research into older traditions and even modern ideas, that it might start even before birth. He talks about the child inheriting psychic overtones from the parents.
Psychic overtones. What does he mean by that exactly?
It's like the unspoken atmosphere, the emotional state, the mental habits of the parents, even before the child arrives. It sets a kind of invisible stage.
Interesting. Okay, so that leads to Comenius's idea of the mother's school.
Yeah, and it's not a school building, obviously. It's the home. It's where primary knowledge happens, knowledge learned by example and environment.
So what kind of knowledge are we talking about here?
It's the real basics. Hall lays it out. Learning to work together for a common good. Learning responsibility where everyone shares in the labors. Patience under stress, being honorable, showing kindness and love, often picked up directly from the mother, he notes. And also what Hall calls primitive principles of religion. Not dogma, he stresses, but like a fundamental sense of integrity, honesty, the bedrock of character.
Right, a core integrity.
Exactly. Plus, basic courtesy, thinking of others, cooperating, and understanding that life isn't just about fun. It's about doing what needed to be done and enjoy doing it. The family unit, in this view, provides the final, ultimate security and integrity for everyone in it.
Wow. So if that's the ideal, what happens when it's missing? Hall says something pretty stark. A child who has no education and goes to school is almost a failure. That sounds harsh. Why so definitive?
It is stark, yeah. His point is that without that grounding, that primary knowledge, kids need a tremendous effort later just to catch up on basic character, basic ways of relating to the world, overcoming that primary ignorance.
And the consequences are long-term.
Devastatingly so, according to Hall. He says the broken home is already a threat to the survival of the child, his children, and their children for 10 generations.
10 generations. That's huge.
It really is. He's talking about an intergenerational impact, a societal debt that keeps growing when families aren't supported, or that foundational learning doesn't happen. It makes supporting families not just, a nice thing to do, but actually crucial for long-term stability.
Okay, so that brings us to Hall's critique of modern education systems.
Yeah.
They often seem to miss this foundational piece, right? They focus elsewhere.
Yeah, his critique of schooling after early childhood is pretty sharp. And it feels very current, actually. He says, look, school can educate, but if a child already has their temperament, disposition, and integrity set from home, they come to school with a kind of moral code, a way to test what they're learning.
Oh, a filter.
Exactly. Without that filter, school often fails to give them what it needs to know. He's especially critical about how we handle the basics, the 3 R's.
Reading, writing, arithmetic.
Right. He says reading. Well, the public is completely demoralized. People don't know what's worth reading unless somebody else refers to it as important.
Yeah.
It's all about quantity, trends, not real wisdom. Writing, he says, often lacks integrity completely, leading to stuff that destroys or debases us. Pretty strong words.
Yeah, and arithmetic.
That one's fascinating. He says it used to be a sacred science, a tool for understanding yourself, the universe, think Pythagoras, astronomy, medicine. Now, all we use it for is to add up profit loss. We've lost the deeper meaning.
Just accounting, basically.
Pretty much. And he tells this story, this anecdote about people spending like 30 years in school, getting degrees.
Oh.
But they never had the time to do anything with any of it. There's this huge gap between just collecting information and actually applying it, living it.
So what's the bigger picture then?
Yeah.
Hall seems to suggest this focus on materialism, on profit loss, is setting us up for failure. How does that play out?
Well, his core argument is that every form of learning is only important if it helps us to understand universal truths. Big picture stuff. He finds it odd that, say, science will study the galaxy but isn't scientifically interested in the long-term effects of a broken home, dismissing it as just a social problem.
I see.
He's very direct. Education aimed only at getting wealthy. That's a fundamental flaw. It leads straight to a materialistic culture that he believes is bound to fail.
Why? Because the ideals aren't high enough.
Exactly. Because no one can behave whose ideals are not higher than those of daily profit and loss. He argues we've broken natural laws, misused resources, just done whatever we wanted in the moment without thinking long term.
And he also mentioned education just becoming about fitting in, right?
Yeah.
Or even creating a kind of snobbery.
Yeah, an instrument of fitting in or getting a sense of superiority from going to a fancy university or taking specialized courses instead of focusing on real wisdom or, just basic honesty.
He called it robot economics.
Right. This idea that education just churns out cogs for the economic machine. He says that whole theory is dying. It has to.
Okay, so if the current system has these deep flaws, Hall talks about fundamental laws, immutable laws. How does integrity fit into that? That seems key.
Absolutely key. Hall insists there are these laws that are immutable, laws governing life itself, and you cannot break them without consequences. It's automatic self-punishment.
Cause and effect.
Pretty much. As you sow, so shall you reap. Simple as that. He says virtue, fundamentally, is just obedience to the law that governs life. It's an honest universe, he says. Break the rules, you get misery.
That ties into another fascinating point. You pulled out this ancient idea of earned citizenship.
Yeah.
So different from how we think of it today.
Oh, completely different. It's really eye-opening. In places like ancient Egypt or the Aztec lands, citizenship wasn't automatic just because you were born there. It had to be earned.
How did that work?
Well, in Egypt, for example, there was a physical act cutting the curl of child hair from the head, symbolized becoming a citizen. And it wasn't just symbolic. You had to prove things. Physical bravery, mental thoughtfulness, emotional integrity. You had to show you could put the community ahead of yourself.
Yeah. What about the Aztecs?
He gives the example of alcohol. Adults could drink, fine. But if a young person, someone not yet a full citizen, became an alcoholic, that was a major offense, severely punished. It showed they hadn't achieved the maturity needed for citizenship.
So citizenship meant responsibility.
Huge responsibility. Taking on his share of the responsibilities for everyone, working for the common good first, last, and all the time. Being willing to sacrifice even your own life for the community. And Hall mentions Lycurgus, the Spartan lawgiver, who believed no individual was worth anything who had never suffered for his principles. You had to be tested.
That really is a world away from just being born a citizen, often with few explicit duties attached. It makes you wonder, like Hall asks, how does a society hold together when people don't feel that deep earned connection, that willingness to sacrifice?
Right. And Hall's answer is pretty clear. If you don't have that principle of integrity at the base of life, if citizenship isn't deeply felt and earned in some way, then society is in serious trouble.
Okay, so if we're in, as Hall puts it, this most difficult generation, what's the way out? He talks about rearrangement, reorganization, and regeneration. Where do we even start? What's education's role in that?
Well, Hall goes right back to the word itself, education. He points out it comes from Latin meaning to draw forth or to bring forth, not just to cram in facts.
You're drawing out potential.
Exactly. Real education is about releasing the conscious desire of the individual to think reasonably, to use the mind purposefully, and ultimately helping us grasp those universal truths.
So what would this renewed education look like? What needs to change?
Fundamentally, Hall says it has to be built first upon the fundamental of integrity, because basic honesty is the key to survival, for individuals and for society. Education should help us get out of the mess that we're in, directly address things like resource depletion, climate damage, our wasteful, thoughtless habits.
It's a practical application of integrity.
Yes, and learning from life itself. We need to teach from what we know and not from textbooks. Use the experiences of our neighbors. Use history. Learn from reality.
That makes sense.
He also holds up the ancient guru system as a kind of ideal. Picture a wise elder, someone living a life of integrity, teaching everything math, science, law, art, all within this environment of integrities.
A holistic approach.
Very. The goal wasn't just job training. It was to prepare people for citizenship in a way of life which he likes to believe is important, to teach them what they should be, not just how to fit into some prearranged economic system. That robot economics idea again, which he says is failing.
What really jumps out at me there and feels quite hopeful is Hull's statement. One good child starting out in life can save an empire. That really brings it back to the beginning, doesn't it? Back to the home, the individual.
It does. It connects everything. Hall believes we need to simplify our material life. So the deeper parts of ourselves, the mind, the soul, and the upper metaphysical parts, actually have room to grow and express themselves. He insists that true knowledge is not boresome. It's actually an open door to happiness. But, he says, the whole thing rests with him, the individual. The ultimate goal is for the human being to become self-governing.
Taking personal responsibility.
Completely. And his final vision for this is quite grand. The earth itself will be the great schoolhouse. We're all here, he believes, on this eternal quest for realities, for truths, and for that kind of inner wisdom. He is optimistic, though. He thinks if we face our mistakes, we can make major changes and find a whole new approach to the idea of teaching. So the core message from Hall, especially for you listening and thinking about these things, is that our current difficulties, this most difficult generation, it's not innate, is not inevitable, and is not predestined. It's the result of a series of mistakes. Mostly mistakes rooted in losing sight of integrity and those foundational values, starting right in the home.
And his call to action for you, for us, is really direct. We have got to come back to basics. It means focusing on our own integrity, our own responsibility, being willing to do our own thing and do it right, not just wait for someone else to fix things. He says something powerful. If we correct the mistakes in ourselves, we will end most of the world's suffering. It starts with us.
It really does. So maybe the question to leave you with, reflecting on all this, is rooted in Hall's own words. We are here to grow, to learn, to love, and to serve, and if we fulfill these requirements, we will never fail. He also says, the time has come for the regeneration of these things, a universal reformation of human relationships. So how could understanding these ideas, the mother school, earned citizenship, core integrity, actually change how you live, learn, and maybe contribute to that universal reformation he envisions?
It's a lot to think about, but also quite simple in a way. As Hall puts it, if we just keep the rules, serve the truth, and do our daily cow's tasks as best we can, then maybe things will work right. And maybe, just maybe, as he suggests, better homes in our world will reduce wars and revolutions. It starts small, but the impact could be immense.